You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. Assalamu alaikum, my name is Omar Aboukwaik, and I'll be right with you. Once upon a time, in a kingdom far away, there was a king, a very generous, kind, courageous, and just king. Everyone in his kingdom was happy. However, due to war, he lost one of his eyes and one of his legs in battle. So one day, the king was just strolling through his beautiful palace in the halls, admiring the portraits of his ancestors, admiring all the achievements that they have done during their reign as kings. And then he thought to himself, oh, I cannot wait until my children come across these halls and look at all these portraits. But then saddened by the idea that his portrait wasn't on the wall. And even more saddened that, how can I have a portrait just as beautiful as the rest with my disabilities? He was determined to change that. So he called upon all the painters in his kingdom and surrounding kingdoms as well, the best of the best. And he proclaimed to them, whoever paints me a portrait just as beautiful as the ones of my ancestors, I will reward them generously based on how beautiful it turns out to be. All the painters looked at each other, a little bit nervous because they thought to themselves, the king is disabled. How can we paint a portrait just as beautiful with all his disabilities? And even if we were to paint a portrait, but it didn't satisfy him, the king will get angry and he just might punish us. So with respect, each one of the painters declined the task until one of the painters raised their hands and said, "O king, I will paint you a beautiful portrait, even more beautiful than the ones of your ancestors in the halls." Everyone was stunned. Everyone was curious. How can this be? But happily, the king gave him the task and the permission to go on with the painting. And so he began immediately. He threw all different kind of paints on the canvas. And even though it took a long time, he was finally done. And when it was time to present the portrait, all the advisors, all the painters, and the king himself surrounded the courtroom, just waiting to see the portrait that was done. And so it was revealed. And everyone was stunned, for the portrait was beautiful, more beautiful than anyone can ever expect. The portrait was a painting of the king himself, riding on a horse on the one-leg side, pointing his bow and arrow with his one eye closed. No one ever imagined such a thing. The king was so happy and he granted him the reward as promised, and he thanked him for hiding his weaknesses and showing all the positive aspects of the king. I think this is a beautiful story because it just goes to show that we all have our weaknesses, but it is on us to portray ourselves. And it is a great deal in importance to hide your weaknesses and show a positive attitude of your greatest aspects. And if we were to do so during negative situations in our lives, we will notice that even in the hardest of times, if we were just to think positive and think of a positive outcome, we will always succeed and we will always figure out a solution. I'll catch you guys next time.